You know, I've been thinking lately. Surprising, right? And it's about time we address the elephant in the room, or I suppose in this case, the grizzly bear in the workplace. As of patch 4.3.0, Splatoon 2 is no longer receiving content patches aside from Splatfests and game rebalancing. The game is officially end of life. But Splatoon is a series that even before the Switch, Nintendo treated as a growing and evolving product, a so-called evergreen product, to use their own terminology. A lot of the allure is the constant addition of new content, and Nogami said himself at GDC that the intent for Splatoon as a franchise is for it to be an ever-growing window into an ever-changing and evolving world and culture parallel to our own, not just a video game series. So, that begs the question, when are we getting Splatoon 3? Eh? Well, that isn't the question we'll be answering today, but it begets another question which we will attempt to answer. What might Splatoon 3 be about? You may think this question is unanswerable, that Nintendo rarely leaves hints to future games, barring the small things like Majora's Mask appearing in A Link Between Worlds, but the original Splatoon, to a degree, does lead into Splatoon 2, albeit in a way only truly visible in retrospect. Splatoon is artsy. You know what else is artsy? Displates, today's sponsor. Because posters are really cool, but they're all flimsy and papery. Ew, that kills trees. But displates are made of metal and tend to look way cooler. Plus, for every one bought, they plant 10 trees. That's so nice. There's displates with photographs, animal art, video game and anime art, TV show art, surreal things. So much is available from so many talented artists. And by buying them using the link in the description, you not only support the original artists, but also this channel. I particularly love how the space-themed ones look. Something about night skies and stars feels so good printed on metal. So a huge thank you to Displate for sponsoring this video. Check them out with the link in the description, and be sure to use coupon code LOCKSTIN15 for 15% off your purchase. Now onwards with Splatoon 3. So, it all begins with the ending to the original hero mode. It's alluded to in Sunken Scroll 2 from Splatoon 2, and outright stated in Marina's chat room in the Octo expansion. That being, the Octarians who witnessed the final confrontation in hero mode mistook it for a Squid Sisters concert. And the sound of the Calamari incantation somehow turned them against Octavio. They now desired freedom instead of the technologically superior but squalid and oppressive military machine that was Octarian society. Interviews with the developers suggested that Octavio used mind control on his soldiers to keep them in line in the first game. And it's a common suggestion that the incantation, a modernized version of a song critical to Inkling culture, somehow broke that mind control. Regardless, the song is known to have mystical properties, being etched into the soul of whoever hears it, and it is known that Octavio, if he was not already, begun using mind control technology on his people after this point, given that Octoline soldiers now wear shades similar to the Hypno shades worn by Callie in Hero Mode 2 instead of goggles now. Then comes the final Splatfest. In real life, this Splatfest determined who was to be kidnapped in the second game's plot, Callie or Mari. It turns out, according to information alluded to in the so far Japan-only Splatoon 2 Ikatsu art book, and further hinted at in Octo expansion, that Octavio kidnapped Callie in an attempt to counter-propagandize his people by putting on a pro-Octavio concert featuring Callie as a counter to the incantation, taking advantage of the rebelling Octarians' reverence toward the Squid Sisters. This is most apparent when you look at concept art for Hero Mode 2, which depicts Callie with Octoline backup dancers, and realize that, unlike the original Octobot King fight, the Octobot King 2 fight takes place in a concert stadium with Octavio. And instead of him wearing samurai garb, he's clad in an outfit consisting of a ball cap and shutter shades, as if trying to emulate the look of a rap artist. This is probably actually a rap symbol, and I'm probably gonna get in trouble. Or it's just the shocker. Of course, as you know, the plan fails spectacularly, resulting in yet another performance of the incantation, which, according to the Octo expansion, directly results in a flood of Octolings making a rush for Inkopolis and freedom. It even ends up benefiting Inkling society, as even though the Octolings are explained away to the public as weird hairstyle fad-using Inklings, there are examples of Octarian technology being integrated into the turf war, such as shifty station stages, marina designs for Splatfests, as well as the Ultra Stamp special weapon, as it has a similar function to the Octo Stamp enemy from Hero Mode. And it bears the logo for the Octopus Oil Company, which, while it does appear in many stages in the first game, in Splatoon 2 it mainly appears in relation to either Hero Mode, Salmon Run, Octo expansion, or Cuddle Gear and Grizz Co branded gear. So to backtrack after that massive diversion, while only obvious in hindsight, Splatoon and Splatoon 2's plots are directly connected and deeply intertwined with each other. Which begs the question, what can we glean from Splatoon 2 to try and predict Splatoon 3? The answer, I feel, rests within Salmon Run. Salmon Run seems like a simple affair on the surface, a co-op horde mode, but there's much more lurking under the surface. You see, Splatoon's developers like to show, not tell, when it comes to game lore, hiding story content in things like the Sunken Scrolls and the maps. This makes Salmon Run the perfect venue for covert lore exposition, especially considering the game keeps making a point of how sketchy Grizz Co is, how they are odd, and something is off about what you do for them. Nogami is trying to tell us something, but what? Our point of interest is the new map introduced in patch 4.2.0, Ruins of Ark Polaris. The map has various signage, in English, warning about it being an active bear area. There are even do not enter signs. The crashed spaceship in the stage, likely the Ark Polaris, has the words private property on it, again in English. This is very unusual for Splatoon, where all signs are in various foreign scripts belonging to the assorted races in the games. Humanity in this world is long since extinct. So, the stage clearly has a story to tell, and thanks to Reddit user Perona77, we may actually know what it is. And it may give us some idea of what to expect from Splatoon 3. This may seem like a diversion, but let's start with Mr. Grizz. We don't know all too much about Mr. Grizz. He always communicates through a radio made in the image of a Kibori Kuma statue, and monitors you and the other workers from Grizz Co HQ using an array of television screens communicating with you via radio. Since no one knows what he really looks like, many have speculated, is he really a bear? Is he an Inkling using the iconography of a bear as a cover? We just don't know. All this secrecy suggests that Mr. Grizz wants his identity to stay secret, which is not dissimilar to the actions of Octo Expansion Big Bag Commander Tartar, who similarly hid his identity behind an inanimate object, and along with CQ Cucumber, surveilled your progress. And of course, the signs around Ark Polaris mention bear activity. Why would a bear be skulking around a space shuttle? The answer is salmon. There's a fun sentence. The answer is salmon. In what context would that be a thing you exclaim in a classroom? Because that's hilarious. You see, in low tide there is an area of the map that resembles a fish hatchery. The area could also be an impact crater from debris from the crashed Ark Polaris, but even then, there are human-made signs depicting salmon, suggesting the area was known to have salmon activity concurrently with human and bear activity. This brings up a lot of interesting questions about Ark Polaris. As we know from the art book, there were some who believed in the future, among those who were attempting to survive in the coming apocalypse. It's then worth noting the connotations of the word ark in pop culture, meaning a vessel or sanctuary that serves as protection against extinction. And the name Polaris may refer to the North Star, the brightest star in the constellation Ursa Minor, which translates to Little Bear. Coincidence? Probably not, because that's what you do when you're designing lore, story crafting. You leave coincidences like that all the time, and they're not actually coincidences. The most obvious explanation, then, is that the Ark Polaris was a privately funded effort to save humanity by granting escape into space. But an equally, if not more likely explanation is that it was a research vessel with a dual function, not just to preserve humanity in the wake of the coming end, but also perhaps to study wildlife, specifically salmon and possibly bear. This is similar to the concept of the vaults in Fallout. Sure, they are there to save humanity, but while all the humans are in there, might as well do some weird experiments and iffy psychology research. Perhaps in the case of the Ark Polaris, genetic experimentation was at play. We know thanks to Commander Tartar that humans at this time had access to advanced DNA manipulation technology. So it's possible. Curiously, the Grizz Co Industries logo is derived directly from the salmon signs in the ruins of Ark Polaris, but with 2 harpoons going through the salmon. Because that's how you make it look cool. This, then, when combined with the excerpt from the Book of Madai that we discussed in this video, suggests that salmonids have been a part of the Splatoon world for some time, an idea backed up by the fact that the Schellendorf Institute contains a sarcophagus depicting ancient Inklings worshipping a golden egg, flanked on either side by 2 salmonids. This suggests that Inklings and salmonids may not have always been in conflict. A curious possibility, given that all of the other information we have about salmonids suggests that they are a barbaric species that practices the hunting and consumption of other sentient species. But it is still not outside the realm of possibility, given the salmonids and Octarians have an ongoing and thriving diplomatic relationship involving the exchange of weapons and technology, and the appearance of salmonid power eggs in Octarian territory. An interesting wrinkle in the game's plot, for sure. Especially given that, according to the Splatoon 2 Akatsu artbook, fish eggs are a known power source, and as we all know, the hero mode of both games happened because of an Octarian power shortage. Interestingly, you can find drawings ranging from simple works of art to even detailed battle plans on various Salmon Run maps, but one in particular sticks out: a drawing of what appears to be a bear eating a salmon. This dovetails with a Famitsu article stating that salmonids see death and even themselves being eaten by other living things as noble and part of the natural cycle. And that's the reason they use cooking implements in their weaponry, including grillers that have turned out to be actual grills that cook the salmonids within alive.
Delicious!
And potentially that confirms that even 12,000 years later, bears in some way are still a constant thing to salmonids. So then, is Grizz Co's harvesting of golden eggs truly to benefit society? As previously noted, the Splatoon 2 Akatsu artbook states that fish eggs in general are used as a power source, but why does Grizz Co specifically need golden eggs? I mean, it is also stated that salmonids refuse to even trade those to the Octarians, since they are too valuable a resource. So, who is to be trusted here? The secretive boss of Grizz Co? A company that the game tells us is not to be trusted? Or the salmonids? Both sides seem dubious, as shown by both environmental details as well as the sunken scrolls. Dubious, for sure. And then there are the Grizz Co Weapons. Inkling weaponry is usually made from human scrap, and the notoriously overpowered Grizz Co weapons are no exception, with the single shared feature: pill bottles. The only Grizz Co weapon not to use pill bottles is the Grizz Co Slosher. This brings up some concerning questions as to why the Grizz Co weapons are so effective against salmonids, not to mention the fact that it is stated on multiple occasions that the Grizz Co weapons are actually illegal, likely due to, well, if the pill bottle theme is meant to be taken literally, then using these weapons may constitute a form of biological warfare, which is very illegal in almost every society. And on top of all that, Grizz Co appears to either be operating illegally in salmonid territory or have some significant leverage over international law. The Salmonid Field Guide states that salmonids, quote, inhabit a restricted ocean zone and any unauthorized contact with them is expressly forbidden by law. In addition, the Grizz Co employee handbook states that, quote, the restricted zone is subject to a mysterious magnetic field known to have an effect on inkling sensory organs. The salmonid sensory organs have adapted to the contaminants in their habitat, so they will not be hampered in hunting down inklings. And it also states when the tide goes out, an unusually large amount of land that is usually underwater will be exposed. The sudden and irregular changes in the water levels are a rare phenomenon found only in this area, as well as describing a state called rush, where large groups of ferocious salmonids appear and carry out rush attacks at furious speed. These crazed salmonids gather in response to the appearance of glowflies. It is claimed that the salmonids' increased aggression is tied somehow to gravitational shifts due to the planet's celestial course. But there is still much that is unclear. So then, not only is salmonid territory dangerous to inklings, it is also subject to radical shifts in water level, weather conditions, shifts in the apparent position of celestial bodies, glowflies. Something strange is going on in this area. Until now, we've largely assumed in the video that Mr. Grizz is somehow a bear, but what if that isn't the case? What if we're wrong? And Arc Polaris's bear activity signs are a red herring. Or at the very least, not as directly applicable as we think. An excerpt from a Famitsu article comes to mind. Quote, Mr. Grizz is always only heard, but is he remotely observing the workplace? The reply, is he even looking? His voice may be a programmed text-to-speech software. Who does this remind you of? Because it reminds me of, again, Commander Tartar, an old human AI who is found working primarily in an environment that defies natural laws and is disconnected from the rest of the world. Could it be that Mr. Grizz, like Commander Tartar, is an old human AI somehow directly manipulating the environment the salmonids exist in? It's possible the salmonids fear bears not because of a literal bear, but because of Mr. Grizz using bear iconography. Backtracking to our diversion at the start of this video, on top of the similarities to Commander Tartar, this also resembles another power dynamic in Splatoon, that of Octavio and the Octarians. A species is made out to be the villain, only for us to find out that a larger single figure was controlling and manipulating things behind the scenes. And now with the Octarians free of control and a new peace starting to develop between the Octarians and Octolings, Splatoon 3 is going to need a brand new villain, is it not? And who's to say what Mr. Grizz could do if he ever turned his sights, and his store of weapons, and his cache of valuable and likely immensely powerful golden eggs onto Inkopolis itself? There's a powerful villain for you. So, there you go. That's the theory. A character whose behavior resembles that of both major villains of Splatoon so far, who, the games have said on multiple occasions, is up to at least sketchy and morally dubious behavior. Ha! I wouldn't be shocked if it turns out that Mr. Grizz plays a major antagonistic role in Hero Mode 3, or whatever form the new game's single-player content will take. But what do you think? Was that convincing enough? Would Mr. Grizz be a cool enough villain to further flesh out the lore of Splatoon in Splatoon 3? Let me know down below, and until next time, please remember to never stop using your noggin.